Though the year is far from over, scientists have already made a number of noteworthy discoveries that have sparked a lot of discussion, whether on Earth or in the vast reaches of space. In fact, not every new discovery advances our understanding of a field. Sometimes it demonstrates how mistaken we were in the past. For example, how can it be that in early 2024, researchers discovered a structure in space that, in our opinion, shouldn't exist at all? Other scientific advancements, on the other hand, are generating intense ethical discussions and raising the question of whether the first human clone. According to the conventional cosmological paradigm, it might soon be bred. Although there are unquestionably massive structures like galaxy clusters, superclusters, and the so-called Great Wall, it is also true that all parts of the sky are similar in terms of galaxy density, temperature, and radiation on a large scale. At least that is the theory, but in practice, experts have repeatedly discovered that our models just don't always match up with reality. The giant arc, a massive arc of galaxies and galaxy clusters that is 3.3 billion light-years long and much larger than it should be, was the first mystery that astronomers solved in this regard in 2021. Following the adage, "An impossible giant structure rarely comes alone," a team led by Alexia Lopez of the University of Central Lancashire discovered a second double XL structure at the beginning of this year, which is challenging to describe. With our present models just like the giant arc, its no less confusing counterpart was identified via the light spectrum of distant quasars, or in other words, active galactic nuclei, dubbed the Big Ring. The galaxies and galaxy clusters in it left behind telltale absorption lines of magnesium ions, and thus provided the research world with another mystery. All in all, the galactic giant ring has a diameter of 1.3 and a circumference of 4.4 billion light-years. If it could be seen with the naked eye or with telescopes, it would take up as much space in the night sky as 15 adjacent full moons. But as the structure, which is around 9.2 billion light-years away, is too faint for this, we are unfortunately denied this unique sight. But how do scientists deal with these unexpected discoveries from a purely technical point of view? In other words, how do you deal with two structures that stand in stark contradiction to our common understanding of the distribution of matter in the universe? In principle, the maximum cosmic size is estimated at 1.2 billion light-years. However, this maximum size is clearly exceeded in both cases, and even more surprising is the fact that the Big Ring and the giant arc are located in the same area of the sky in detail. The giant structures are not only about the same age, but also only around 12D apart. This raises the question of whether the cosmic neighbors were once part of a single, even larger association. An exciting question, but one that is unlikely to find an answer anytime soon after all. Astronomers have so far only been able to speculate about the background to their formation and the exact nature of the structures. One theory suggests that the objects are associated with so-called bionic acoustic oscillations. This refers to the remnants of density waves from the early days of the cosmos that have left ring-shaped traces in the distribution of matter. Typically, however, these have a radius of only 500 million light-years and also formed a closed circle, contrary to its name. However, this does not apply to the Big Ring. According to spectral analysis, its shape more closely resembles a corkscrew, such as spiral. The British physicist Roger Penrose says that the Big Bang was not the beginning of everything, but rather the beginning of a new cosmic cycle. According to this theory, the universe has always been subject to a constant interplay of decline and rebirth, and as a sign of this cyclical cosmos, among other things, Penrose proposed that the enormous rings were remnants of Hawking's radiation from earlier extremely massive black holes, but string theorists are also attempting to explain the large ring. The influence of cosmic strings, that is, incredibly thin thread-like topological imperfections in space that were created soon after the universe was created by the splitting of the fundamental forces, could be the cause of the monstrous construction's existence. No, this creation isn't from a science fiction film, it's the tiniest robots in the world. In contrast to the beetle, which weighs only 8 mg and 55 ml of water, researchers at Washington State University have created two small robots that are modeled after insects and will eventually pollinate plants, help search operations, and monitor the environment. Despite being the tiniest and fastest mini-robots in the world, Strider robots have to concede defeat to actual insects in terms of speed. The artificial creations can only reach a maximum speed of 0.02, while an ant can race across the landscape at 3.6 km/h. However, the robots have a secret that most creepy crawlies can only imagine. They are composed of a shape memory alloy that enables them to quote-unquote, "In addition, we are dealing with true powerhouses here." In preliminary testing, the robots were able to lift more than 150 times their own weight, but the energy supply still needs to be improved, because this has only lasted a short while. Does the future belong to water batteries because they are less likely to fail, less expensive and safer? Our traditional lead-acid or lithium-ion batteries may soon be obsolete thanks to new water batteries introduced by an Australian research team a few months ago. In this case, the organic electrolyte, which is still lithium, is simply water that has been enhanced with additives like inorganic salts. The scientists also use natural and frequently occurring materials such as zinc and magnesium for their construction, meaning that the new energy storage devices are less toxic and significantly cheaper to produce. In the same breath, the experts have also succeeded in solving the problem of dendrites with their small button batteries. These are microscopically small crystal structures that grow in batteries and can trigger short circuits in the water batteries. The experts have coded the infected components with the metal bismuth, which rusts and thus creates a protective layer that puts a stop to the formation of dendrites. But that's not all. Study leader Tian Yima from the Royal Melbourne Institute of Technology stated that the batteries can also be safely dismantled and the materials reused or recycled the surface life of the water. Batteries should be comparable to that of commercially available lithium-ion batteries, and they could be used in solar cells in as little as 1 to 3 years of healthy cloning and ethical debates. What began in 1996 with Dolly the sheep has now reached Retro the rhesus monkey, and this is actually the first cloned representative of its species to reach adulthood. Born in China on July 16, 2020, the primate was created as part of the so-called somatic cell nuclear transfer or SSENT procedure. In this process, scientists remove the nucleus of an egg cell and replace it with the nucleus of the animal. They wish to replicate. This technique has not only been used to create Dolly, but also cows, mice, pigs, goats, rabbits, and even dogs in 2018. The Chinese research team that created Retro succeeded for the first time in cloning 2 long-tailed maxes and keeping them alive. However, attempts with rhesus myox had always been doomed to failure. Until then, the few animals that had seen the light of day usually died after just a few days. According to the scientists, the fact that Retro is still a lively exception in this list is due to a special trick. The researchers removed trophoblasts in the embryo, the cell layer that connects to the uterine lining and later forms the fetal part of the placenta, and replaced them with trophoblasts that they had previously produced through artificial insemination. In this way, the experts cloned a total of 113 rhesus monkey embryos, 11 of which they implanted into the bodies of female rhesus monkeys. In 2 cases, a pregnancy occurred. In addition to Retro, a pair of twins also grew, but died before birth. But what is a scientific success? On the one hand, is also at the heart of a fundamental ethical debate. How far can we go with cloning? Researchers are especially interested in rhesus monkeys because of their biological resemblance to humans, and many drugs are tested on them before being approved. However, does this mean that we might eventually be breeding humans in laboratories? In Germany, the Embryo Protection Act prohibits this in principle, but it is not against the law to clone monkeys. Whether the advantages for human medicine would outweigh the unspeakable suffering of animals is a different question. Completely. The earliest known black hole, a galaxy wolverine that is 400 million years after the Great Bang, presents a significant conundrum for specialists. The object, which weighs around 1 million solar masses, actually devours far more than it should. The distant galaxy GNZ11 had already attracted the attention of astronomers led by Roberto Molino from the University of Cambridge. With its unusual brightness in images taken by the Hubble telescope in order to uncover the background, To the unexpected luminosity, the researchers took a close look at the structure using Webb's near-spec spectrometer and recognized from the spectral lines that it is home to an active black hole. However, as it is astonishingly massive for its early formation, the question arises as to how the Colossus could have grown in such a short time, and the answer to this question may be hidden. In the radiation emitted by the early giant experts have determined that its luminosity corresponds to the extreme energy output of 10 to the power of 45 Hz per second, which means it exceeds the so-called Eddington limit by a factor of 5. In astrophysics, this is regarded as the natural limit for the accretion of matter onto a black hole, and the time since the Big Bang was actually too short for a black hole of this size to form in principle. However, some researchers assume that super Eddington accretion could have taken place in such early objects for at least some time. However, in such a scenario, the overactive galactic nucleus would be expected to catapult a large part of the interstellar medium out of the galaxy as a result of its intense radiation, bringing star production to a virtual standstill. And lo and behold, the researchers have actually detected the first indications of a significant drop in the star formation rate in GN Z11. And you are now welcome. To track down the subscription button and ensure a significant increase in the community formation rate, click thumbs up and subscribe right away to ensure you never miss another thrilling video from us.